Hi folks, today we're going to go through a quick tutorial showing you how to launch and deploy a new ERC20 token on the Ethereum network using OpenZeppelin's implementation of ERC20 tokens and Remix. So you're not going to need to download any software for this. We can do this all in browser. And once we've deployed our token, we're going to go ahead and actually connect to it using DappHero. So this is going to show you how to build your own token super quickly. So let's get started. First, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Remix. So if you just go to remix.org, you'll get this sort of interface. Let me just close this to make it really easy to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a new file here. We're just going to click New File. And we're going to call this token.sol, right? So this will create a new empty file for you. So what we're going to do is OpenZeppelin has a fantastic library of contracts, which provides a lot of ready-to-go functionality that you can use in your own projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the ERC20 contract, and this is what's going to allow us to build our own token, right? And this is the kind of token that you saw in ICOs. This is the same kind of token as DAI, as Maker, as any of these other tokens that are interacted with normally on decentralized exchanges or sold elsewhere, right? So this is the token that we're going to be using, and we are going to actually create this in Remix, right? So we can do everything in the browser. Now, I'm going to bring up a great blog post over here by OpenZeppelin team, and this is actually going to show you how to use OpenZeppelin contracts inside of Remix, because normally with Remix, what we would do is we would actually import a contract. And you can see this over here in the ERC20, you would import here, but this syntax isn't gonna work inside Remix. So what we need is we need to use a different kind of syntax, which is explained here, right? So I'm gonna actually just copy this from the OpenZeppelin forum really quickly. And feel free to go and check this out to specifically read a little bit about it. So I'm gonna copy this right here, and I'm gonna just take it over to Remix and I'm gonna paste it in, right? So let's walk through what's being said here. First, we have our pragma solidity. This means that this contract is valid for using solidity versions 0.5 and above. Here we have two import lines, right? We're importing ERC20 and ERC20 detailed. To read more about those, you would read more about those in the ERC20 documentation at the OpenZeppelin documentation website. Right? So the important thing here is, and what's different, here you would just see at OpenZeppelin /contracts /token, etc. That is when you have your own project locally on your machine and you've installed the OpenZeppelin contracts in your project, doing something like npm install OpenZeppelin or OpenZeppelin contracts, right? But again, that's not going to work in the browser. So what we have to do is we actually have to point exactly to that file. So in this case, we are pointing to GitHub, OpenZeppelin, OpenZeppelin-contracts, blob, because we want just the data of the contract, the version 2.5, and then contracts token ERC20, ERC20 sol, right? If we were actually to take this and copy this, right, let's create a new window and paste it, what would come up? Well, we would come directly to that contract right here. So that's what we want, right? Now, basically, the rest of the work has already been done for us by the OpenZeppelin team here, right? We just say contract token. Remember, we're calling this token. Contract token is ERC20, ERC20 detailed. And by the way, I named this manually token. If you were to call your new file like hotdogs.sol, you would have to change contract hotdogs here instead of here, and that's if you wanted to match. That's actually not a necessity. So you could call the file itself something else, and this contract would have a different name because you could have multiple contracts in here, right? So you could, for example, do this, right, and then call this something different. You could call this token 2, right? But we're not going to do that right now. So let's look at the code here. Token is ERC20, right? So we're inheriting this contract, and ERC20 detailed. So we're inheriting this contract, right? So we have a constructor here. It takes no arguments. That's because we are hard coding the arguments here, right? So if we were to say, let's say, string token name, right? And this, I think, has to be memory. String memory token name. We would just put here token name, right? That's how we would do that, right? But in this case, Let's undo that. We are hard coding the name of what our contract is, what our token is going to be. Token, TKN, 18 decimal places, right? So now we can deploy it. And if you watched the other DappHero video about how to use Remix, you'll know how already to get your plugins for deploying and running. Essentially, you click down here on this button, you need two. You need compile, which is the Solidity compiler, which we already have. And you need deploy, which is deploy and run transactions, which we already have, right? So what we're going to do is first we're going to compile. We click compile. I already have auto compile on because that means it's compiling constantly. And then I'm going to click on deploy and run. We're using the JavaScript VM here just as an example really quickly, and that's fine. So let's just click deploy. Blah, blah, blah. It deployed instantly because, of course, this is in a local environment. So there's no need to wait. It's instant. And now if we click on some public methods such as name, you'll see the name is token, symbol, TKN, total supply is, the first thing we called here was mint. We minted, I don't know, what is this, a million tokens with times our decimal places, right? So we minted a lot of them, right? So great. Next step, let's actually deploy this to the Ethereum network, right? So what we're going to do is let's check if we're signed in. I have a Rinkeby, so let me just sign into my MetaMask. Now I'm connected to Rinkeby, which is an Ethereum testnet. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change our environment to injected Web3, right? And you don't see the MetaMask pop-up that I have, but I click it and now my MetaMask has been connected to Remix. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click deploy. I have a MetaMask pop-up here, which I don't think you can see. I click deploy and now I'm waiting for it. Right, so if I click on my MetaMask, again, I don't know if you can see it, but the transaction has been confirmed and it pops up here as deployed contract, right? So this is now deployed on Rinkeby. This is now on a public Ethereum testnet, right? Name, token, symbol, token. Great. So now that we're connected to a contract that we actually deployed on Ethereum network, what we're going to do is we're going to add this to DappHero. So to get started for that, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our ABI, right? We're going to need that. So let me find where it's at. So we're going to go to the Solidity compiler tab. And if you see down here, we have a thing that says ABI, right? And that's what we want. So if we copy that, what are we getting? Well, let's just paste it here so you can see. Here we're getting this really long thing, and this is the ABI of this contract, and this is what we're going to need to connect to it in DappHero. So let's go do that. So now that we have our token deployed, let's connect to DappHero and actually create a project around it so we can start building a front end for our token. Right, so let's log into DappHero. I'm already logged in, so I'm just going to go to the dashboard. Load that up, and we have projects and contracts. Now, to create a project, you need to add contracts. So what we actually do is we're actually going to create a contract first. So let's go to contracts, click new, and we're going to call this my demo token, right? And the description will be my ERC20 demo token, right? So if you remember, we deployed this contract on Rinkeby. Now we need the address. So let's go back to Remix, and we're actually going to go up to the Ethereum little logo button here. And we are going to click this button here. And this is what actually gets the address of our contract, right? So we click that, it's been copied to the clipboard. You can just paste it here to see. That's the address of our contract, right? So let's go back to DappHero. Now we add the deployed address, right? If this contract had been validated on Etherscan, we could load the ABI from Etherscan, but because we haven't, we can't use that feature, right? So instead, we need to get the contract ABI. So now let's go back to Remix and let's go back to this button, right? The Solidity compiler button. Down here, you'll see this little piece of button down here, ABI. Click that and it copies the ABI to the clipboard. Again, here in the window, you can paste it. You can see it's really long. So let's undo that. So now that we have that copied, let's go back to DappHero and we paste it in here. Right? Now that we have this ABI pasted in for our contracts, we click save and we go to make a project. So let's go over to projects and we're going to create my token project. My token project. Remember, projects can have more than one contract, but in this case, we're just doing this for our token contract. So, we just use this one token here, one contract here, right? So my example project with a token. Great. Save that. So now we need to add our network and our contracts to our project, right? So because we deployed on Rinkeby, let's click add. Now we've added Rinkeby to our project. Now we can select or create a smart contract. So what we want to do is we want to collect my demo token and we want to click add, right? So now we have my demo token added to our project. Great. So now the process of actually getting started to build our front end is super, super simple, because one of the things that we can do for you is we can actually generate you the HTML necessary to use in your project. And you could click this button for generate. And what that'll give back to you is it'll give you a long HTML page that you can use to pop into your whatever editor that you're using to write HTML to do your website, so you can get started like that. Or we'll actually generate you a website inside of Code Sandbox that's hosted so you can build your front end right online. So click generate, have that load up, and then you'll get a link to a Code Sandbox. So if we click that link, where we're taken to Code Sandbox, and we have our demo project right here with all of our methods carefully laid out for us, plus the HTML nicely formatted for us right here so we can access it, plus the information alongside with Code Sandbox for us to add things like more assets or different kinds of files and things like that. So what we have now is we have a complete environment to go ahead and edit and work with our token project, right? So you have this sort of sample website. As you see, you have your enable button that you can click to connect to MetaMask. The contract will automatically connect to DappHero backend Ethereum providers for your network, which means that public methods that don't require inputs, such as decimals, name, or symbol, will automatically load up for you. And this will also work on mobile providers and even mobile phones without Web3 providers, right? You won't be able to send transactions, but you'll be able to access public information about your contract, right? So here we have our transaction, we have our methods, and then we have our transaction methods down here as well. So another little feature that we'll show you really quickly is if you go down here at the bottom, we include an extra script tag to help you get started accessing the events of your contract. And if you click down here, it'll open up the console that shows you what's happening in the sort of like back end. And this is where if you want to add some more like programmatic ability to your project, this is where you can do it. In particularly interesting is the listen to smart contract blockchain events, because ERC20 contracts, they emit events when they're used. So to do something interesting here, let's just do a quick example. So let's enable MetaMask, right? We clicked enable, right? So now we are connected. So now we have a right provider connected. And let's send some of our tokens, right? We should be able to send, I think. I don't think we set up any sort of like limit on who can send tokens. So let's send, let's see, where is it? Transfer. Let's transfer 10 tokens. Transfer. MetaMask is going to pop up here. I'm going to click OK. We have our transaction hash. Doesn't quite fit in this box here, but the transaction has started. So let's wait down here and see if we get an event when this transaction has confirmed. All right, so it's confirmed down here. We'll give it another second because the DappHero backend is a little bit faster than MetaMask itself. So MetaMask has confirmed, and indeed on the console you see pop up here the blockchain events, right, which is the code that you see here. And now we see contracts is emitted a contract event, value, let's take a look at what the value is. And the event is transfer. What are the args, right? From this address to this address, right? And then here will be the amount. It's in big number, so we would have to actually convert that if we wanted to use that as a decimal. But that is a really quick example of how you can build your own ERC20 token, get your own DApp for that token, including access to events. And here you can actually just go in and start editing the HTML to make this work and look how you'd like. So this is a really quick way to get started. And if you have any questions, please hit us up on the forum or in the Telegram group. And we will be bringing more sample tutorials for you throughout the next couple weeks, and hope you enjoyed it.